Hi, welcome to another live episode of We Should Talk About That. I'm Jess Buchanan.
And hi, I'm Jessica Kidwell.
And we are the two Jesses. We're the hosts of the podcast, We Should Talk About That. And we're coming to you live on ZTV with the Zebra Press from our home studios. Due to a minor complication, we shifted to a virtual episode tonight. But next time, we promise we'll be back in the studio at one of our favorite places, ALX Community. It's Alexandria's best shared office space and community working center.
And since this is a live show, even though we are virtual, two things are good about that. I didn't have to put real pants on. And you can still enter in questions. So feel free to comment in the chat down below. And if you have questions for us or for our guest as we introduce her, we certainly will do our best to get to it. This month's episode is particularly special to us because we are celebrating Women's History Month. In 1981 was the first recognition of Women's History Week, by the way. It started off as a week, and then in 1987, by presidential proclamation, every March 1st through 31st is Women's History Month. And we are particularly excited to have an incredible woman joining us tonight. We are so excited to welcome Jennifer Folsom, who is the Vice President of Growth at ICF Next in her real job. But her passion project that she has been working on the last couple of months is a combination in collaboration with Know Your Value, which is a program that Mika Brzezinski from MSNBC has worked on. This was directly in response to the tragedy of women leaving the workforce as a result of COVID. The numbers are astounding. The number of women who have lost their jobs or had to leave their jobs in order to be at home because childcare or because they're traditionally women are working in hospitality fields and that field has been decimated. So Jen has been working on a Reboot Boot Camp, which is a career boot camp to get women ready to re-enter the workforce. It helps them recognize and be recognized for the work that they have done, for their personal and professional value, and develop their individual growth. So Jen, welcome. Tell us all about the work that you're doing on this necessary project.
Well, thank you both to having me. I'm a little under the weather here, so thanks for going remote just for me today. But this is just something too important for us not to talk about. So I'm glad we're doing that here. I do a little bit of writing for NBC's KnowYourValue.com platform for professional women. And Mika Brzezinski is a friend of mine. And I think it was January 8th, the December jobs numbers came out that said 111% of the December job losses were to women. And you're thinking, how is that possible? 111%? That's because men actually gained jobs in December and women lost more. So it's just insane. And I texted her and I'm like, we've got to do something. But it was a really big headline that was lost in a crazy news cycle. Mm-hmm. It was the same week as the insurrection, like things that we could not imagine happening here. I mean, COVID continues to rage. And, we just decided we were going to put our heads together and try and find ways to help women at scale. And that's the really hard part because so many women have been impacted.
Do you have any kind of finger on the pulse of these jobs actually that the men have gained in comparison to the jobs that women are losing? Are these a certain type of job, certain type of profession? And then I'd love to ask you about the childcare industry because I think that's a huge, yeah.
Right. And it's interesting. So, part of it's structural and part of it's cultural. On the structural piece, as you mentioned, there are certain industries like hospitality or service industries that are dominated by women. Those are the ones that were really decimated. But then there's the culture aspect. Like if I'm, many of the people who work in these industries are women of color. They're often the lowest paid. They are often there's bias that's implicit. They are often the first ones to be laid off, the last to be rehired. So as you're seeing people come back to the workforce, it seems to be more men in certain industries than women. And I think a lot of women are sort of like, are you kidding me? I have to do online school. I'm taking care of my parents who can't leave the house. I mean, you want me to go back to work for $14 an hour? I mean, that's really a hard choice to make for a lot of people. And so like the number that really stuck out to me was in September. Schools are trying to reopen, mostly virtual, some hybrid. No one knew what was going to happen. And 1.1 million people left the job force in September alone, and 80% of them were women, because they're like, how on earth am I going to educate my children? Daycare's not open. I can't do it all, and something's got to give. And then culturally, a piece of that is interesting. The majority of those people, women that left the job force, were Asian American women who have other cultural norms around caretaking and the importance of education. So it's, and often live in multi-generational families. So, you know, again, I'm not an economist, I'm not a sociologist, but the facts are really interesting. And I think that's why there's not a one size fits all approach to getting women back to work.
And I think that we spoke to Chapeli Carranza from 19th News earlier in the pandemic, and she was talking a lot about how this really just highlights the necessary role that childcare plays. And it's like this Gordian knot that you can't untangle without addressing all of the issues. Childcare jobs are some of the lowest paid jobs that are available. Childcare then costs a lot for people who are most likely to need childcare. And if you do not have any place for your children to go, when the schools closed, it was like a spotlight on this whole issue of the role and necessity that childcare has in the success of our economy. So I had hoped that there was going to be a bigger conversation that came out of this pandemic. And like you said, I feel like we had so many stories that just piled up that you couldn't hear above the noise of political unrest and racial unrest and depression and death and all sorts of things. And then you just have no place for anyone to go to be able to get back into the workforce.
Yeah, there's a lot of angles there, and I think you're right. There's a reason why most other countries in the developed world have some sort of state-sponsored daycare at some level, or that's why, because it supports the economy, and we're all better for it. Even if you don't have kids, the economy is better, so it's better for you, even if you're not a parent. And I think that what COVID has done is put all of sort of our structural challenges into this big spotlight, a giant ring light, if you will, since we're all on Zoom all the time. And, we need to start thinking about quality childcare as infrastructure. So we've been talking about like jobs programs and rebuilding our bridges and our roads that are failing. Like, this is part of the infrastructure of our economy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like a basic part of the infrastructure, because if we just anecdotally, I have a friend who sent me a text message the other day and said, I thought I was killing it, and she is killing it on the childcare front. But I had my kids all set up. I got on my conference call, and the oldest runs in and says, the youngest one set the living room rug on fire. I mean, it's like,
That's about
God,
right.
I feel you. I feel you. We can't kill it on Zoom and keep our children alive. Like, it's impossible.
Yeah, this is not even talking about a happy home life or quality, virtual schooling education. It's like, how do we keep them alive? And I've got older kids. It presents their own set of challenges, but I really feel for the people with really young children. And I will tell you, the companies that are winning this right now are those that sort of acknowledge and respect it. My boss did something. I'm in a new job. I'm only a couple months in. And so I'm really impressed with her leadership tone. She started our all hands meeting with like all 350 people in our division by acknowledging that it was a snow day. It was last week. There are many people already at home. Any little people, hop on your laps, be there. And by just saying it's okay was such a relief to me and to everyone on the call.
Do you feel like there's still, obviously not in your new place of employment, that's awesome, and congratulations, by the way, but do you feel like there's still this undertone of women having to compromise success for motherhood? Like, we still have to pretend that we don't actually have kids to be able to advance in our
maybe
professions?
like one silver lining. I keep this list on my fridge of things that have like gone well in the last year, like the upsides of COVID. Like, I really love small business retail drive-by and pickup. I think that's awesome. I hope they keep that up. But like, I think one of the things is, when my kids were younger, I had to take all of my conference calls in the bathroom, the downstairs bathroom, with a big exhaust fan that would drown them out. But I think it's really much more cultural acceptable to have kids interrupt. Yeah. And a lot of dads have kids interrupting. But I think it still persists, and there's generational guilt on us as women that we're not doing enough, that we're not being good enough mothers, that there's still laundry not folded. You cannot be all things to all people and do all the things at once. And you take a big blow like losing your job for something that is not your fault at all. That's a real blow. It's a real blow. Yeah. And then trying to figure out how to get back to work, like, who's going to hire me, knowing that I need to be at home supervising virtual school 3 days a week? And then, are they going to be a good boss? Are they going to understand me? Like, what if I'm in an industry that has been obliterated? How do I, move to something else at this stage in my life? I don't have it in me. I'm too freaking tired.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I think it's important to point out, for those who haven't religiously listened to every single episode of our podcast, which you should, Jennifer was a guest on our podcast in season 1 back in April of 2020, because she, in addition to all of these things that she's doing, she's also an author, and she wrote the book Ringmaster: Work, Life, Keeping It All Together. And we had you on, Jen, to talk very much about what you just said as far as re-entering into the market. And that seems to play in and tie in with what you are doing with the Know Your Value Network. The process of helping these women, what does that look like, and what do you need from the community in order to support women coming back into the workforce?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So what we tried to do was reach out to women who've lost their jobs because of COVID, focusing primarily on women of color if we could, just because those are communities that have been impacted disproportionately. And tried to, I sort of have been doing the intake, walking through where they are, what they're doing, what they need, what they would like to be doing, and then following along on their journeys and identifying where they hit those stumbling blocks to see if we could go to leveraging, frankly, Mika Brzezinski's great list of experts and my own as well in this amazing community to help them get over those hurdles. So if you're getting stuck because you have no idea how to use adjacent skills to maybe say being something in like a hotel. We have a lot of folks at local hotel chains who have worked in corporate jobs, because so many of the corporate hotels, like Marriott's located here, and Hyatt, and so all of the folks that thought like, gosh, I've been doing marketing and communications for 20 years in tourism. How do I pivot? The two Jess's favorite word.
I don't have a problem with it. Pivot.
But how do you get out of that? And then how do you tell your story, knowing that your industry is not coming back in the next year or two, and you've still got a mortgage to pay? So how do you do that? So what the idea was, if we could identify a couple of women who were willing to share their story, we could work with them. And as they're going through some of the big stumbling blocks, we were hoping that people at scale, women across the country, maybe across the world, would see themselves in these women and say, oh, God, that's just like me. That is just like me. I think I can do this too. Like, we're working with one lady who is amazing. It's 20 years of great experience for DC doing, federal contracts management, sort of like a thing in DC. But her LinkedIn profile and her resume were selling her short. It was not telling her story. There was a lot of it is just sort of like, get that piece of it right. And maybe that resume and format has worked for you for the last 10 years, but it's not working right now. So how do we get through that? And it's a really interesting market right now, because think about it. The upside is that you could apply for a job almost anywhere in the country. So many of these non-physical jobs are of knowledge workers typically are available. The downside, my friends, is that means they have that many applicants for every job. So structurally in recruiting in many companies and organizations, recruitment is an overhead cost. So many people have fired their recruiters. So there's really no one even managing this huge, really inefficient job market. So it comes down to relationships and it comes down to the network. So, you made a great ask is what the community can do. And if you know someone who is struggling with a job search, send them to me. If you are an expert in some aspect of this, if you are a resume writer or a job coach, I want to hear from you. If you're willing to mentor, if you're in the position to hire someone right now, let me take a first crack at it. Let me send you a couple of names. I can't guarantee that anything is going to be a slam dunk, but I think that there's just a lot of people out there who want to help, but the market has become extremely, extremely inefficient. It is one giant internet resume black hole.
It feels so overwhelming.
Super encouraging.
So
it is overwhelming, and that's part of it. Like, how do you stay positive? No one wants to hire the Debbie Downer. I know it's a horrible thing to say, but you can tell when someone's desperate or just like, sure, I'll take this job. No, you have to have a job that you're interested in. You got to be flexible, but you need to have a job that is the right one for you at this moment.
So what you're offering are basically free services in life coaching, career coaching, therapy. What else am I missing? I mean, sign me up? Sign me up.
I think what it comes down to is, and I talk a lot about this in my book. When you're a real busy mom doing all the things, your professional network shrinks a little bit. Just because you can't go to the Tower Club for a networking event at 6 p.m. when you're driving the hockey carpool. It just does not work. So I think a lot of us have just lost touch with former employers who could make some asks for us, or we don't feel confident in reaching out. And so this is just a little bit about helping to make some connections across people, from Mika's list of experts, from mine. And it's about knowing who you are, what your value proposition is, what you will accept, what you won't accept. Because you can't take everything. I mean, if you come into to me and say, like, I will wash windows tomorrow, I'm like, okay, that'll last for 3 days, and maybe that's okay for 3 days. But, we really have to be thoughtful about how you reenter, because you still are, juggling virtual school and taking care of your parents and all of those other things.
So I love the know your value concept. And I think we have a clip that we wanted to play just to kind of, well, it's not pivoting, but I want to get your reaction on this.
Talk about being flexible, because I think sometimes women are super afraid of change, and they like the rules to be the rules and the way things are done to be the way things are done.
I just read something interesting about how 60% of women screen themselves out of jobs when they're looking online or on LinkedIn or wherever. And you shouldn't screen yourself out. You have to say, all right, anything's a possibility. Let me be in a position to say no. So I think sometimes we don't view it as we can go for it as easy. We have to be qualified at every level. And even if a job says it's full-time here, let's see, explore it. And I think you need to take it that way.
Being flexible?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important. And, there have been plenty of jobs that some of my friends along the way have not applied for because they haven't, their skill set in their mind has not matched every single skill set or every criteria that's laid out in the job, which is crazy, because some of the best jobs that I've ended up getting are the ones that were outside of the box in terms of what I think I could do, or also what the job entailed or what the job description entailed. Oftentimes employers, they know what they want, but if you present an alternative or a slightly outside of the box way of thinking about approaching the job, it's, light bulbs go off in their head and they say, oh great, why don't we try to adapt it that way? And Susan and I are both consultants, we both have our own business, and there have been jobs that I have seen online where I said, you know what, I wonder if they would take this, do this position as from a consulting perspective, where instead of hiring somebody full-time, hire a consultant part-time.
So you make them be flexible.
So you make them be flexible.
I like
exactly.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm my own worst enemy with this. I was in a great job for the last year and I loved it. It was going well. But, sort of sensing my own network was shrinking a little bit. I got invited to join a group of women executives. And I'm like, I can't believe they're even inviting me. Like, how did I get into this group doing a little Zoom cocktail thing? And through that, I met a woman who's now my boss. And when she offered me this job, I thought, like, Mary, I'm not qualified for this job. Like, I know you talk to so many other people who are more qualified. And she's like, what is wrong with you? Of course you're qualified for it. So I even have fallen victim to that. But I think one challenge right now, and I think you might have a profile on her, a woman we're working with right now, her name is Ann Nicholson. She's a single mom, and she's very specific about what she wants to do, which is great. She's worked with some experts. There's Ann, and she's amazing. She's really interested in working in corporate social responsibility and social impact. There's not a ton of those jobs around right now. And what she's finding is recruiters are just getting inundated with so many resumes. They might have 10 requirements of a job description and they're getting, candidates with 12 or 13 of them. And so she's doing with her little guys there. She's got her home desk job search set up right next to virtual kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard. I think that one thing that I'm really impressed with Anne is she has shown tremendous grit, tremendous resilience. She stays upbeat. She stays positive. If I'm a hiring manager, that's what I want to hire because she can handle some rough business cycles. I know it. So, I think that the crowded job market makes this even just a little trickier, but that does not mean you shouldn't go for it. You should not go for it if you're going to blindly submit your resume online. That's going to go nowhere. You have to network yourself somehow into somebody who knows that person or that company.
So how do we do that in the time of COVID? Networking is so difficult right now. Or is it easier?
I think there's a lot of ways it's easier. You just have to put yourself out there a little bit. So, after meeting my now boss, I was having a particular industry kind of specific issue, and I wanted just to pick her brain on it. I wish there was a better term than pick your brain. I hate that one. But I wanted feedback. I wanted some feedback. I wanted some advice. And I just asked her if we could meet up at an outdoor coffee shop and weather was still nice. And it was great. And so I put myself out there asking someone for advice. People are almost always open to advice. Yeah. I also try to do just 1 or 2 networking touches a week. I call someone, talk about like disarming someone, picking up the actual phone and not texting. It's lovely. And I say, hey, I need to go on a walk around the block. Let's catch up. Or I'll just say, I just need a couple of minutes of your time. Can we get together for a virtual coffee or a cocktail as it suits you? And I'm so surprised that people want this one-on-one, where we may have Zoom fatigue for doing the big Zoom stuff and the big meetings and virtual school. I find that the one-on-one stuff, when it's really purposeful and specific, people are willing to do, and we both get a lot out of it. But right now, you need to use LinkedIn. Like, that's the tool that's on the shelf right now. It makes it easy for you. You can use 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon to find anyone, link up to me. If there's anyone in my network you want to talk to, I will introduce you. It's just much easier to find that.
You have been preaching the LinkedIn gospel to us since April, and I am sorry to say that I have not fully embraced the scripture of the LinkedIn. I do want to just point out that what you're saying is resonating with some of our watchers. Virginia Amos just wrote in and said her daughter landed a terrific job after she and her husband lost their business in the pandemic. And yes, she got it through networking. Yeah. Virginia, thank you for that comment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, this was always the case. It's not sort of like just the networking. You just need someone on the inside to say, do you know the hiring manager's name? Can you walk it over to someone's desk? If folks are really interviewing, dozens or hundreds of people for every job, and I think that that's the case, having an endorsement from Jess B is huge, right? If Jessica Kidwell could say, oh, she's my neighbor, you should totally hire her. I mean, I don't work with her, but she cleans up her dog poop and she's awesome.
I do think that one thing, I don't know if it's a woman thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're afraid to ask for those favors. We're afraid to ask to be introduced, to be connected and networked. And I don't know, like just in the last, probably since the pandemic, I think I've just really let that go. Because I find,
Totally.
and then in turn, I find that I have opportunities to connect other women with each other. And it's this totally awesome karmic kind of energetic thing. And the more I introduce people to each other, the more people introduce me. And it's just this like awesome domino web of connection, even if it's just happening over Zoom.
Yeah, and I think that that's what it comes down to. The more you put yourself out there to help other people, it comes back to you tenfold. It's karma altogether. What good energy and help are you putting out to the universe? And so, despite being in a new job and having 3 kids and writing for NBC, this is what I'm doing because it matters. And one day I might be in that spot and I might need some help and someone to just take an extra interest in my resume or forward it to 3 friends that might have a job opening. It's just a little bit of connection. It's not asking anyone for a favor. It's just saying, hey, can you just point me in the right direction? That's all I need right now. Mm-hmm. And I think that men have been doing that for a long time, sort of innately. Mm-hmm. And we are natural networkers. We should really leverage that sort of natural, authentic skill, the thing that we're already good at. But, we don't need to do it just for our kids and play dates and school fundraisers. It's also okay to do it for us. In fact, maybe we should do that first.
Yeah, I do know that is something that I think I don't want to do it to the exclusion of men, but I do think that our innate ability to network, make connections, and frankly, multitask are all very marketable skills that I know that I personally downplay. And I wonder if many women downplay those as extremely marketable skills.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I hope that the market continues to really value that. I think though it's very disarming and humanizing for us to see each other in our home workspaces. I've seen some dads of young kids lose it because, it's hard to multitask. The moms do. I mean, I actually fell out of this desk chair once on a Zoom last week. I mean, I was trying to do literally multitasking and I fell off the chair on camera. And I just laid there like, I wonder if anyone's going to notice. And will they send someone for me? I don't know. But it's, those are really marketable skills. And maybe some people sit in chairs better than others. That's not mine. But and really calling that out and going just one extra half step for someone who's maybe lost their job. Can you do a mock interview with your friend before her big interview? Can you share her resume a couple places? Can you put something on Facebook that just says, hey, my pal just got laid off. She's awesome. If you're looking to hire, an HR specialist, she would be amazing. So just taking one little extra half step to help one another, I think is really going to move the needle here.
Absolutely.
So as we continue to have people come in and out and watching, what I want to make sure that we just circle back to is, how do people reach out to you, Jennifer, if they want to take advantage of the Reboot Career Camp or if they want to help with the Reboot Career Camp?
Yeah, great idea. So the Know Your Value team set up a little email box. It's kyvreboot@gmail.com. And so we're all in there. We're meeting people. We're responding to emails. We're trying to find experts. So if you are an expert that could help with this, we'd love that. And we're making the connections for people. So that's kyvreboot@gmail.com.
Awesome. I think we also put that in the comments so that anyone who needs to quickly write that down, feel free and get in touch with Jennifer. She's an incredible resource for sure.
Absolutely. So happy to have you in our network.
Thank
It looks like, we have another comment. You interviewed, totally got how her experience in managing sporting events could translate into project management in a completely different field. Her best friend, an HR specialist, was also invaluable in coaching her for the interviews. Okay, so a shout out to you.
All right, that's awesome.
I also saw that AR Workshop, which, hello AR Workshop, big fan, mentioned 1000% when we were talking about multitasking and our networking skills and that we underplay it, as well as Bridget Brown said that's fact. So we love getting these comments. We love when people interact with us. And in fact, it's kind of a networking thing. So it's full circle.
That's all right. That's all right.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time, even when you're not feeling well. I mean, talk about the power of a woman, power through and come on here and share your expertise and your experiences and just your wealth of knowledge with us and everybody out there.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
sure.
This is tremendous.
Well, we hope that you feel better, and we would love to invite you back to see our wonderful space at ALX Community when we are able to do another in-person event. So
I can't wait.
please, please, please keep us in your LinkedIn network. And don't forget to catch us on We Should Talk About That, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We have new episodes that are coming out every Monday. And in fact, starting next Monday, which is March 8th, and also happens to be Jess B's birthday. Happy early birthday, Jess.
you.
We are celebrating International Women's Day, which is March 8th, and we are releasing new episodes every single day that week with incredible women who are doing amazing things in their community. You can find us at WeStatPod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we are available wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thank you so much to ZTV for partnering with us. We absolutely love this opportunity to come and talk and interact with people. So on behalf of ZTV, please be the good news in somebody's life.